This floor is the Dragon Demon's laboratory, ruled by a high-ranking demon whose monstrous power matches the legendary 10 corpses. The entire floor is built like a huge grid of magically sealed rooms used for horrifying experiments. These experiments include forced battles, breeding, incubation, and genetic modification. In Vikir's previous life, countless challengers enter this laboratory, but none of them ever make it out alive. Because of that, it becomes known as one of the deadliest traps in the entire Abyss Tree. Now, Vikir is trapped in this same nightmare together with Sinclair. He carefully looks around, trying to understand the dark purpose behind the laboratory. A system notification suddenly appears and gives them a new mission, telling them to escape from the Dragon Demon's laboratory. Breaking the silence, Sinclair admits that she never imagines they will end up trapped in a place like this. Trying to lighten the mood, she playfully starts calling Vikir her older brother. When Vikir asks why she suddenly becomes so familiar with him, she boldly replies that she will call him whatever she wants from now on, even if it makes him uncomfortable. She explains that since her feelings have already been rejected, she no longer has any reason to hide how she feels about him. She even admits that ever since Vikir rejects her confession, she actually feels much freer. She is no longer trapped by expectations or afraid of being disappointed, so she can finally do whatever she wants. She jokingly adds that even if he rejects her, staying in love with him is completely her own choice. Vikir accepts her explanation and quietly remarks that he cannot control what her heart feels. Looking at her exhausted condition, he realizes she must have gone through unimaginable suffering to reach this place. He asks how she manages to reach the 9th floor and what happens on the previous floors. Although Vikir tells her not to force herself if remembering everything is too painful, Sinclair quietly mutters that she is never supposed to be the one who survives. She sadly insists that the people who truly deserve to live are not her. Filled with despair, she calls herself worthless garbage that does not deserve to stay alive. She explains that after being dragged into the Abyss Tree, she isolates herself from the other students. She refuses to form a team or accept help from anyone because she believes that nobody can be trusted in such a cruel survival game and that she has to survive alone. After enduring the nightmare of the lower floors, she finally reaches the 5th underground floor, the magic train. There, she finds herself inside a single train carriage with 20 desperate academy survivors. By fate or coincidence, she reunites there with Tutor, Sancho, Piggy, and Bianca. They welcome her so warmly that she immediately regrets pushing everyone away. Right after they reunite, a cruel teamwork mission begins. The mission forces the 5 of them to become one squad under a deadly condition. If even one member dies, the entire team will also die. The moment the mission starts, the train carriage turns into a bloody battlefield as everyone begins attacking each other. Terrified by the chaos, Sinclair prepares to use her magic to kill the other competitors. However, just before she attacks, her friends stop her. They firmly insist that they should not become murderers just to survive. Instead of joining the massacre, they focus entirely on defending one another. They continue protecting each other until every other team is wiped out, allowing them to clear the trial together. Before they even have time to rest, the tower throws another cruel challenge at them. A mysterious red portal appears before the exhausted group and activates a hidden mission designed to destroy the bond they have just formed. They must vote for one MVP who will escape the floor, while the remaining 4 will be sent through the portal into a colony filled with deadly S-rank monsters. After risking their lives for each other, they are forced to choose who deserves safety and who will be thrown into a living hell. Breaking the heavy silence, Tutor steps forward and says that everyone already knows what they have to do. He argues that the person with the greatest chance of surviving should escape. Sinclair desperately says that she does not want to fight or abandon her own friends. Tutor gently interrupts her and explains that because she is the most talented among them, she deserves to survive. Sancho agrees and tells her that she should escape, become stronger, and one day destroy all the demons to avenge them. Piggy smiles and tells her that she also has to keep living for their sake. Bianca hugs Sinclair tightly and playfully complains that she has been acting cold lately. She tells Sinclair to think about that attitude later and reminds her that very few people are lucky enough to have friends as wonderful as them. Overwhelmed by their sacrifice, Sinclair collapses to her knees and tearfully asks why they are willing to do so much for her. Tutor calmly replies that making such sacrifices is exactly what a true hero does. All of them smile warmly and remind her that she is their most precious friend. After finishing her story, Sinclair completely breaks down in tears. She sadly says that while her friends trust her completely, she is too afraid to trust them back. Crying before Vikir, she calls herself a coward who never deserves to survive and insists that her noble friends should have been the ones to escape instead. Vikir kneels beside her and firmly tells her that nobody has the right to blame her and that she should never feel guilty simply because she survives. Hearing those comforting words, Sinclair tearfully thanks him for finally removing the heavy burden she has carried inside her heart for so long. The weight of her painful memories becomes too much for her. Her eyelids slowly close, and she loses consciousness in Vikir's arms while burning with a high fever caused by complete exhaustion. As he holds her, Vikir silently admires how she and her classmates manage to preserve their friendship, self-sacrifice, and strong convictions even inside the horrifying hell known as the Abyss Tree. Their peaceful moment suddenly ends when Decarabia notices drops of water falling from the ceiling. Moments later, heavy rain begins pouring inside the sealed chamber. Before Vikir can understand why it is raining indoors, another system notification appears before his eyes. The screen reveals shocking information. They are currently inside the human breeding room, and the environment is actively preparing a mating experiment. A strict 10-hour countdown begins. Vikir stands frozen in disbelief as he realizes they are trapped inside an actual breeding chamber. Sinclair is born into the prestigious bourgeois family, the wealthiest family in the entire world. During her childhood, her father deeply loves both his wife and his daughter, and they live a peaceful and happy life together. However, everything changes when her mother suddenly dies. After this tragedy, her father becomes a completely different person. He abandons his own family and becomes obsessed with gathering endless wealth, eventually making the bourgeois family the richest family in the world. As Sinclair watches him change, she slowly realizes that the cold and distant man before her no longer feels like her real father. Instead, he seems like a complete stranger wearing her father's face. Since she no longer has a place beside him, she is cruelly thrown out of the family, and her life instantly falls apart. Even after losing everything, she refuses to give up. She works tirelessly every single day because she wants to stand before her father once more. If her exile is actually meant to protect her, then the Night Hound only kills her father to save the entire empire from a hidden demon. At that moment, she finally understands that the legendary vigilante has been fighting a lonely and merciless war against evil in the darkness all this time, while the entire world falsely brands him as a terrible criminal. Deciding to let go of her deep hatred, she strongly resolves to find the Night Hound and speak with him face to face so she can learn the truth. With the vigilante's name still fresh in her mind, Sinclair suddenly wakes from her deep sleep. She immediately gasps in shock and disbelief as she turns to see who is sleeping beside her. She realizes that she is completely naked under a warm blanket with Vikir, while their wet uniforms are spread out near the campfire to dry. Looking closely at the peacefully sleeping Vikir, she desperately tries to understand how they end up in such an embarrassing situation. At that moment, Vikir opens his eyes and immediately notices that she is awake. When he looks back at her, Sinclair's face turns bright red with embarrassment. She quickly scrambles backward, moving away from him, and loudly demands to know what he has done to her while she is asleep. Remaining completely calm, Vikir hands her the now dry clothes and explains that he only shares his body heat to stop her from freezing to death because she is completely soaked. He calmly assures her that nothing inappropriate happens between them. Although Sinclair quickly puts on her dry uniform to cover herself, she still cannot stop feeling extremely flustered and confused by how casually he treats the whole situation. However, their awkward moment ends immediately when she suddenly notices a thick pink gas beginning to fill the sealed chamber. Seeing this, Vikir realizes that he accidentally lets his guard down and falls asleep because Sinclair's cold body takes much longer to warm up than he originally expects. At that very moment, Decarabia suddenly panics and shouts a loud warning that something terrible is happening inside the room. Vikir quietly curses under his breath as a red system notification appears, warning them that the second round of mating officially begins and releases a powerful aphrodisiac mist throughout the room. He immediately realizes that he completely forgets about the system's environmental timer, so he quickly turns around to check on Sinclair before the aphrodisiac fully affects her. But before Vikir can react, Sinclair suddenly rushes toward him and wraps her arms tightly around him. She then loses her balance, falls onto the hard floor, and desperately clings to his legs. Trembling all over and breathing heavily, she softly mutters that her head is spinning and she cannot think clearly. She tells him that her body feels unbearably hot and that everything around her feels strangely different. Vikir quickly realizes that she breathes in the dangerous aphrodisiac mist, especially when she whimpers that she can no longer control herself. Completely overwhelmed by the powerful gas, She begs to stay closer to him while the system coldly announces that the female subject is now fully prepared for mating. Driven entirely by instinct, she quickly casts a spell and summons glowing magic chains that instantly bind Vikir's arms, preventing him from moving away. Holding tightly onto the restrained boy, she tearfully confesses that she is completely alone in the world and has no one else. She desperately says that as long as he stays beside her, she never has to feel lonely again. Looking down at her miserable condition, Vikir quietly sighs, deeply regretting that he now has to use drastic measures to stop her. He immediately summons his crimson Beelzebub blade and uses its sharp power to easily break the magic chains holding him. A completely stunned Sinclair looks up at him, while Vikir gazes back at her with cold, glowing red eyes and softly apologizes.